Bretto, after an extremely tough 2020 for many, it is so exciting to announce our first in real life event for 2021.
Oh, MP, it's an understatement to say we miss connecting with our tribe, but it makes the 2021 Wellness Breakthrough all the more exciting.
If you're ready to rebound or to make a comeback and even make 2021 your best year yet, you are warmly invited to join Brett, myself, and an intimate group of like-minded souls at the Wellness Breakthrough from February 5 to 7.
Imagine yourself tucked away in the serene Strzelecki Ranges of Gippsland, Victoria. You don't have to cook, you don't have to clean or do anything domestic. We feed you, we accommodate you, we hold the space for you to create your own wellness breakthrough.
Whether it's in your health, your relationships, work, life, wealth, spirit, any part of your life, you can expect major transformation at our most intimate event.
We'd love for you to join us, but spaces are strictly limited to 20 attendees. And as we record this, we have less than 10 spaces left.
For more info, to watch the highlights of previous years and to join us from February 5 to 7 in 2021, go to thewellnessbreakthrough.com.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello, welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood, and this week Jules and I are sharing with you a very recent little recording that we took from our Soul Driven Motherhood training and workshopping of our Amplify 2021 intention setting and manifestation workshop, because it is high time for us all to be continuing to integrate and learn our lessons from 2020 and start to think about what we're wanting to bring into front and center for us in our lives in this year, this new year. And we particularly felt that this excerpt was powerful to share with our listeners because in it we explore the often very pervasive feelings of shame and guilt, and how much they can actually slow down our capacity to grow and also really impact our own self-worth, and can be two really, really strong emotions that can plague us in motherhood. So we share this excerpt because it's also really powerful to chart Julie's transformation of her financial area of life from one of shame and contraction to one of abundance and expansion. But in this little excerpt, we also share how when our narratives are really powerful and our belief systems are really strongly held, that we can still have these looping in our psyche even when our reality is displaying something different, just because those stories are so entrenched. And so this little foray that Julie and I go into here in conversation with each other and the women present is just a beautiful example of how we can start to unravel some of that stuff that leaves us feeling pretty stuck, in order to set some really clear, energetically spacious goals for the new year. So if you feel inspired by this conversation, we really invite you to consider joining us in Soul Driven Motherhood, which is just $39 a month, or you can book or sign up for 6 months at $222, or for a whole 12 months of courses, workshops, immersions for $444 for the year. So a few different access points to join us, and it really is where we're showing up daily with conversations, with insight, with courses, workshops, whatever it is that is calling our heart and spirit and calling together the women in that group. So you can find out more about Soul Driven Motherhood at nourishingthemother.com.au. And let's hop over to the conversation.
So part of, I think, what will come up for most of us will be, certainly when we're reflecting on the year, and then when we're reflecting on or setting intentions, maybe the part of us or the beliefs that we might hold around our capacity to do the thing. What we might run into is this sense of, oh no, but I can't because I've tried all those times and I haven't done it. And what we then do is collapse into this cycle of like, can't move forward because I'm stuck in this sense of shame. And so I won't do anything. And that may be where some people have found themselves even working through the workbook, is like, I've run into this spot, I've run into this belief, and I don't actually know where to go from there. And
sorry, Bridget, do you mind? Because I was going to say, this is where our worksheets work really well, because I was actually just doing this before we jumped on the live. When you've set all of your intentions and then you're trying to dial it down into specifically, now it's like a dilution or a distillation where you understand your goals more. Then the next sheet is, so in order to achieve these goals, what I need to let go of is. And I actually just sat there and started on one sentence and then went, oh my God, and this, and oh my God, and that, and thought, okay, this is the best question to be asking right here. Right. Yeah. So one of my goals is financial empowerment, and that sense of stability with that, like a grounded stability, because I always carry this sense of disempowerment or inferiority around finances. Like it's a really old programming in my body where, you know, like childlike, like everyone knows more than me and I'm just this silly little blah, blah, blah who doesn't know anything, you know, that kind of feeling about it. And I'm really ready to transform that. But what I realized is I carry the belief, or I'd have to let go of, this is where this came out, of I'll just waste it anyway in the end. So if I end up, I'll just waste it all and end up poor, back to the very beginning of my roots and what sits in my body. So the way for me to avoid what I perceive unconsciously to be my inevitable disappointment or fall from grace is just to never really do it, right? Which is exactly what you're talking about.
It kind of cancels itself out because you're kind of like, well, what's the point anyway? And then you get stuck, and then it just stays as a wish. And not actually anything that has a goal around it. Yeah.
So sorry, that just highlighted.
And so the shame then, in the case of working through the shame that you might be holding in your body from that, is that belief can only ever be informed by experiences of the past. So there must have been an event in the past where you perceived yourself blowing it all.
Many. Life story. I couldn't hold abundance, right? Like I couldn't hold it.
Yeah.
Like even as I'm growing, right? Like even in Nourishing the Mother, I used to have to stretch myself through. Okay, this is even, I can tell you even evolutions of this in terms of even having savings. So luckily, I was about to say I'm not married to Bridget, but in our partnership in Nourishing the Mother, it kind of feels like that. So luckily, I married and outsourced the financial empowerment. So she's helping me grow, even as we've grown Nourishing the Mother over the last 6 years. Together or something. Now we've been doing that. I remember initially when we were setting up all of our financial structures, and you were like, right, okay, so as a minimum, I think what we need to have in PayPal is like $2,000. And I remember at the time being like, what the fuck do we need $2,000 in PayPal for? You know, and then it was this built up, oh, well, now in our, you know, our bank account, we really need to make sure we've got a buffer over there and at least 8 to 10 grand. And I'm like, what the fuck is 8 to 10 grand of my money sitting in the bank account for? Like, I can remember having these thought processes, right? And at the same time, realizing, holy shit, I don't even have the self-worth / control to be able to feel the necessity and the stability that having that provides. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like it's almost like, why would you have that if you could spend it? Or why would you have that there? It's just wasted because it can't go and buy something or provide something in some other way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I can remember literally breathing into, and that was my practice. How does $2,000 just watching that money sit there and not, in inverted commas, do anything? How do I make that feel really good? And then how does $8,000 in a bank account, when I look at it, feel really good about it sitting there? They were like my step processes.
And you know when it's something like new, because it's like a clashing of worlds, because that is like a clashing of like whole reality is going, but why? You know, like, but why would you do that?
Yeah,
right?
but because it was never part of my reality, right? Like, and not part of my neural pathways. And I just think we need to have the deepest compassion for ourselves in all of that, because we expect ourselves to adult up and know things that have never been known by us before, or dare I say, lineages.
And same goes to parenting. You know, there'll be people who take a mainstream parenting path and do controlled crying or whatever, and then realize, oh God, like there's all this science now that says that probably wasn't optimum. And so then they take the information they now have, like you, taking the information you now have about finances and projecting it back into the past, and then sending yourself into a sense of shame about it. So the way to process that is, for you in this example, would be to go to the most highly emotionally charged moments for you where you felt like you just spent it all, like that you had this money come in and you just wasted it. You know, and wasted is this sense of like you got nothing from it, right? That's what wasted says. It was like it came and it went, and there wasn't a sense of holding or gaining from it at all. And you look at yourself at that time and you see, what did I gain from it? What were the benefits of me spending that money in that way?
I really love that you've pulled that apart, because that thought process hadn't occurred to me, that wasted means I gained nothing. Yet all of the times that I can see before you said that, I was attaching the pain to, well, I've just blown it anyway. I totally gained stuff from.
So where did it go? I mean, it might have gone to spending money on supplements. It might have gone to going relationship. So maybe you went to a fancy dinners, or maybe you went on a holiday.
Or we went on a holiday, yeah.
Right? And so how has that holiday actually been a building of wealth in a different form? So your wealth wasn't gone. Your wealth was held. So financially that wealth was gone, but the transformation of the investment of that wealth, instead of the investment of that wealth growing in a bank account, the investment of that wealth moved into the expansion of relationships. And that has been a bank that has been growing ever since.
Oh, see, I love this. I don't think we can hear this often enough. I just feel like we need to sing that shame.
Because it's the form, right? Like the form is, if we get stuck on the form, then we get stuck in shame. But until you see that nothing is missing, it's just the changing form, that you can then go, oh, I didn't just blow that money. I spent that money at that time in accordance with my highest value, which was relationship. And that is where I can see the expression of that wealth now. So did that wealth actually go? Did I actually blow it? Or was me at that time in my life allocating that money exactly where it was most meaningful for me?
No, 100%.
And you can do this even with, like, say you had like a bunch of party years and you went out and like took drugs.
Blew it all. That was my husband when I met him. Like, he's 10 years older than me. So I had more financial abundance than he did 10 years later than me. Because he's like, lived the basketball life or the baller life and pissed that shit up a wall.
Yeah. But then how did it help him like have crazy stretching experiences and in navigating different environments and reading different people, and like there was still something that was gained from that, even though with our financial hat on we would say that was reckless, right? But actually in terms of developing mastery in different areas of life, it was purposeful.
So would you keep stacking, because I can feel an easing of the shame as you're talking and riffing on that, which feels really lovely. And then I can still notice this part of me that's like, yeah, but it wasn't financially like a good decision. Like that sense of like wanting to redo it. So does that just mean I haven't equilibrated?
So you keep going and you keep looking at the benefits. So you want to get more, like until you have a bigger shift, and then you would go, okay, and what would be the drawback to me?
Yeah, if what
I think I should have done was put that money in the bank, what would be the drawback to me then and now had that money gone into a bank account?
Yeah, I love that reminder. Thank you. I really needed to hear that. Thank you.
Because that's to then go, because as soon as you still want to change it, you haven't equilibrated it. The equilibrating question is, what would be the drawback to me if it was the way I think it should have been? And you ask that enough times to then go, actually, I can see how that was purposeful. I wouldn't change it. Because the shame is what swallows us. The shame is that sense of anytime we hold shame is wishing something was any other way, or wishing we showed up in some kind of different way means that we were out of gratitude for that moment, that experience. Same with and guilt. Guilt is that sense that we cause somebody else more drawback than benefit. And so guilt can be, I feel guilty that I put my parents through that as a teenager. I feel guilty that I yelled at my child. All that kind of stuff that stacks up also can impact our ability to step forward. And so asking the questions on those things of what was a benefit to my mother and her highest values in experiencing my wayward teenage years. So that time where my mum called up my teacher and found out that I had waived school and she was already really stressed. How was that purposeful for her? How did that bring her and my dad closer? How did that get her more insightful knowledge into the teenage brain? How did that help her recognize my need for separation from her and her codependency on me? How did that help her learn what she needed to learn to help my brother navigate coming through those years? And so when we start to ask these questions around the person that we are feeling guilty towards, we can then see that the experience that we're having is not just our experience that we're orchestrating, that we are always in relationship with another who is experiencing and gaining something from that experience as well. And so even with our children, how does us getting angry at them help them learn about boundaries? How does us getting angry at them help them learn about what anger looks like and the power that anger has, and help them see, wow, I'm back into myself now. I was losing myself in my mother. I now know who I am, So that's where asking those questions around guilt is really powerful too. Because we can either accept that they are just part and parcel of being a mother, which we use guilt expertly to make ourselves do things. But if we're wanting a different reality and we're wanting to set ourselves into uncharted waters or expanding into new realities for ourselves, the way that we've used our shame and guilt in the past is not going to work for us anymore, because we're asking ourselves to grow in a different way. So running the same stories that we use to use guilt to motivate us, it's not really the answer. The answer is to go, how did the thing I'm feeling guilty about serve that person? So that I no longer have to carry it as baggage. I can see that in that moment, it was purposeful. That moment, I can feel it clear in my body, move on to the next one. And we just go with the ones that are most emotionally big for us.
Yeah, I love that. Bron said, could there be a live or podcast recapping financial goals, programming and forming new habits? Yeah, we did that in here actually with Jodie Nolan. I wonder if you looked at her, because that live was like freaking gold. Like the shit.
Oh yeah, I want to go back and listen to that.
Oh my God, it was incredible. Like so generous, really, for the extraordinary time and knowledge and woman that she is. Amazing. So I would go back and listen to that because it's totally there.
Yeah.
Mine with the podcast we did with her, you get all of that. Julie, I know one podcast you touched on this and said you read numerous books to repattern your beliefs to build wealth and abundance. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've talked about that a fair bit in here, haven't we? We've talked about doing financial, flip your finances, like doing an updated version of that. Haven't we? We've talked about
we have.
But flip your finances is probably where we were doing that, which was what, 3 years ago now?
Maybe 4.
Gosh, really?
3 or 4.
Okay.
I don't think I'd had Sylvie yet. So it must be 4 and a bit maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's here in Soul Driven Motherhood though, like that unit.
Flip your finances is in here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so perfect. I wasn't going to say it before because I'm like, I can't remember. Okay, so yeah, Bron, definitely go into Flip Your Finances and look at the live in here with Jodie Nolan and the podcast that we did with her. It was freaking gold.
And the Flip Your Finances is cool because if you want to see sort of where Julie's at now and where she was at then, you can kind of see that.
Very true description.
Well, yeah, right, because it was that growth edge. It was that early growth edge. That was when you were reading the books and like you were falling asleep.
Yeah, I couldn't read a page. 100%. 100%.
But so much of it is actually much like parenting, much like anything that's new that you want to become more masterful at, is putting yourself in the sphere of that information so that then becomes what's embedded in your consciousness.
Yeah,
so that you grow into that.
Yeah, totally. It was a great question though, Bron, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that little insightful foray into our Soul Driven Motherhood community conversations, and this is one of the many that we have, and this is a great deep dive into processing shame and guilt, and particularly unraveling some of the long-held stories that we can define our lives by, and it's pretty inspiring to see the shifts. So if you were particularly interested in Julie's shifting and transformation of her financial area of life, you can hop into Soul Driven Motherhood and access Flip Your Finances, which is really where she began. And it's a really great product that we created and that we continue to refer back to. And for something a little different, you may be one of those women who, like me, got to the point of feeling like maybe you should be done having kids, but there's a part of you that just couldn't say it or live it or embody it. And you found yourself, like me, saying through tears or through heartache to your partner, I just don't feel done yet. I can't close this door. And maybe you're there now. Maybe you can sense that you thought you could be done, but you're not. In which case, I invite you to consider joining me for a masterclass on Thursday, the 28th of January, where I talk all about expanding your family and the conscious questions to journal, to converse over with your partner, to embody yourself so that you can come to a place of greater clarity and greater connection with yourself and your bigger desires together. Because it is possible to go from a no and a conversation closed dynamic with your partner to a full-bodied yes, and stepping into expanding your power and your family through seeing that conversation as an opportunity to grow together. Which it certainly was for my husband and I. So if that's something that you're interested in deep diving with me or exploring further, then I am creating this container privately for me to have an open forum with you in an Ask Me Anything kind of format, together with my insights and teaching from my own experience and also in working with other women and couples. So it is Thursday the 28th of January, and you can sign up over at suburbansandcastles.com. To connect with Julie, it is julietanner.love and us on Nourishing the Mother at nourishingthemother.com.au. Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family, and we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.